The stars looked different from this distance. Captain Ethan Miller stood at the viewing deck of the starship Horizon, watching as Earth became nothing more than a pale blue dot behind them. Humanity's first true interstellar vessel pushed forward, into the unknown, carrying 200 of Earth's brightest minds toward what they hoped would be first contact with alien life. "Nervous?" asked Lisa Daniels, the ship's chief science officer, as she joined him at the window. "Wouldn't you be?" Ethan smiled slightly. "We're about to meet aliens. Real aliens." Lisa nodded. 20 years ago, we picked up their signals. 10 years to decode them. 5 years to build this ship. And now we're finally going to see them face to face. The Horizon was Earth's greatest achievement. A ship capable of reaching the edge of the Aldorian Confederation's territory in just under a year. The crew had trained for this moment their entire lives. They were diplomats, scientists, soldiers, and explorers. They represented the best humanity had to offer. What they didn't know was that they were also the first wave of the most successful invasion in galactic history. Ambassador Zakrel of the Aldorian Confederation fluttered his membrane-like wings in what his species considered a yawn. The humans were late for their scheduled arrival. "Any sign of their vessel?" he asked his aide. "None yet, Ambassador. Their technology is primitive. Perhaps they encountered difficulties." Zakrel nodded. The humans were a curiosity, nothing more. When their signals had first been detected, the Confederation Council had debated whether to make contact at all. Some argued that humans were too warlike, too unpredictable. Others saw potential in their adaptability. In the end, curiosity won. Out and limited communication was established. Now apparently the humans had built a ship capable of reaching Aldorian space. Impressive for such a young species, but hardly concerning. The Aldorian Confederation spanned 7 species and hundreds of worlds. Earth was just one planet, isolated and new to the galactic community. "Ambassador," the aide suddenly called. "Out. We're detecting a vessel approaching. It appears to be the human ship." Zakrel moved to the viewing screen and watched as the Horizon emerged from the darkness of space. It was smaller than he expected, with a design unlike anything in the Confederation fleet, crude yet somehow elegant in its simplicity. "Open communications," Zakrel ordered. "This is Captain Ethan Miller of the Earth vessel Horizon. We come in peace and friendship." The words had been practiced countless times, yet Ethan still felt his heart pounding as he spoke them. On the screen before him, the alien ambassador's face showed no expression he could read. "Captain Miller, I am Ambassador Zakrel. The Aldorian Confederation welcomes you to our territory." The translator implants worked perfectly, a small miracle of technology that would prove to be one of humanity's greatest advantages in the years to come. "We are honored to be here, Ambassador. My crew and I look forward to establishing diplomatic relations between our worlds." What followed was a carefully choreographed dance of diplomacy. The humans were given permission to dock at the Aldorian station. A delegation of 20, led by Ethan and Lisa, would be permitted to disembark and meet with Confederation representatives. As they prepared to board the station, Lisa pulled Ethan aside. "Remember the mission," she whispered. "We're not just here to say hello." Ethan nodded. The public mission of the Horizon was diplomacy and cultural exchange, but Earth's governments had agreed on a more ambitious goal: to secure humanity's place among the stars by any means necessary. The Aldorian station was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure housing representatives from all 7 species of the Confederation. As the human delegation walked through its corridors, they couldn't help but stare at the diversity of life forms around them. Kate Nelson, the delegation's chief diplomat, was already at work. While Ethan and Lisa met with official representatives, Kate mingled with lower-level functionaries asking questions about trade, governance, and technology. "Your station is impressive," she told a Vexlar staff member. "How do you manage power distribution across such a large structure?" The Vexlar, pleased by human interest in their engineering, explained in detail. Kate listened carefully, recording everything with her neural implant, another technology the aliens didn't know humans possessed. Across the station, Joe Frost from the economic team was having a similar conversation with a Meserite trader about shipping routes and resource values. By the end of the first day, the humans had gathered more practical intelligence about the Confederation than any official briefing would have provided. "They're like children," Ambassador Zakrel told the Confederation Council 3 days later. "Enthusiastic, curious, but ultimately harmless. They marvel at technologies we developed centuries ago." The Council nodded in agreement. The humans were an entertaining diversion, nothing more. However, Zakrel continued, they do learn quickly, and they seem eager to trade. I suggest we offer them limited observer status and establish a small exchange program. The Council approved the measure without much debate. The humans would be permitted to send a small number of representatives to the Confederation headquarters, and a few Aldorian scholars would visit Earth in return. None of them noticed how carefully the humans had maneuvered toward exactly this outcome. 6 months later, human representatives had established private trade agreements with merchants from all 7 Confederation species. Earth goods, simple artwork, unique foods, and basic resources commanded high prices as novelties in Confederation markets. The observer team, led by Kate Nelson, had mapped the entire political structure of the Confederation Council, identifying every faction, every rivalry, and every weakness in the system. Meanwhile, back on the horizon, Lisa Daniels and her science team worked day and night studying Confederation technology. They didn't try to steal designs. That would have been detected. Instead, they learned principles, concepts that could be adapted and improved upon by human engineers back on Earth. "They don't see us as a threat," Ethan told Lisa during one of their private meetings. "They think we're primitive." Lisa nodded. "That's our advantage. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll be too entrenched to remove." Earth's 2nd and 3rd ships were already under construction, incorporating what they'd learned from Confederation designs. Human diplomats were establishing relationships with minor species outside the Confederation. Trade networks were expanding. The plan was working perfectly. In 50 years, humans would have colonies on dozens of worlds. In 100, they would be indispensable to galactic trade. In 300, they would hold key positions throughout every major institution in known space. And by the time anyone realized what had happened, humanity would have already ruled the galaxy for generations. Not through conquest, but through quiet, persistent integration. The invasion had begun, and not a single shot had been fired. 50 years passed quickly in the grand scheme of galactic politics. Humanity had established 17 colonies across different star systems, each one carefully positioned near important trade routes or resource-rich worlds. The Aldorian Confederation and other alien powers still viewed humans as minor players in the galactic arena, useful for trade but not worthy of serious political consideration. This was exactly what humans wanted them to think. On the frontier colony of Proxima B, military, strategist Olivia Ward watched her soldiers train in the red light of the alien sun. Unlike Earth forces of the past, these men and women trained in various alien combat styles, adapting techniques from across the galaxy into something uniquely human. "They're learning fast," said her second-in-command, a stocky man named Eric Powell. "They need to," Olivia replied. "The Meserites have been expanding their territory. Sooner or later, we'll need to defend ourselves." What she didn't say was that human intelligence networks had already confirmed the Meserites were planning an attack on Aldorian territories. The Aldorians themselves remained unaware, their complacency blinding them to the gathering storm. Olivia's comm device buzzed. It was a message from Earth. "Project Light Jump successful. Prepare for delivery." She smiled. Paul Garcia, the brilliant engineer who had been studying alien propulsion systems for decades, had finally done it. Humanity now had its own faster-than-light drive technology, one that surpassed anything the Aldorians possessed. On Earth, Paul Garcia stood back and admired the new engine core. It was beautiful in its complexity, a fusion of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien technology. "Will it work?" asked the project director. "It already has," Paul replied. Our test ship made it to Mars and back in under 3 minutes. That's twice as fast as the best Aldorian ships. The director nodded, impressed. And they have no idea we've developed this? None. They still think we're using the outdated drives they generously shared with us 20 years ago. Human ships equipped with the new drives would be deployed within months. Not as obvious warships, that would attract too much attention. Instead, they would be disguised as merchant vessels, science ships, and diplomatic shuttles. Hidden in plain sight, ready to respond when needed, and that need would come sooner than anyone expected. Ambassador Daniel White sat in the Grand Chamber of the Confederation Council, officially there as a human observer. In reality, he was one of the most influential people in the room, though few of the alien representatives realized it. Over the past 5 decades, human diplomats had built an intricate web of relationships, favors, and dependencies. They provided unique goods that certain species had grown to crave. They offered diplomatic services when tensions arose between Confederation members. They shared just enough technology to be valuable, while withholding their true capabilities. The chamber doors burst open and an Aldorian messenger rushed in, wings fluttering in distress. The Mesorites have attacked the Palaxian system. 3 colony worlds have fallen already. The council erupted in chaos. The Palaxian system was a critical Aldorian territory, rich in resources and strategically located. If it fell, the Mesorites would have a direct path to the Aldorian homeworld. Daniel White remained calm, tapping a hidden command into his neural implant to alert the human response network. The Confederation will mobilize its defense fleet, the Aldorian High Commander announced. But it will take time to gather our forces. Daniel stood up. Earth offers its assistance, he said simply. The council turned to look at him, surprise evident on their alien faces. With respect, Ambassador White, said the High Commander, your ships are too few and too slow to be of significant help. Daniel merely smiled. Perhaps you underestimate us, Commander. 3 days later, as the Mesorite fleet approached the Aldorian homeworld, a small group of human vessels appeared suddenly in the system. At their head was the Defiance commanded by Admiral Frank Ochoa. The Aldorians were shocked, not just by the humans' unexpected arrival, but by the speed with which they had reached the system. It should have taken weeks, not days. This is Admiral Ochoa of the Earth Defense Fleet, Frank transmitted to the Aldorian Command Center. We're here to assist. Before the Aldorians could respond, the Mesorite attack fleet emerged from hyperspace. They outnumbered the human ships 10 to 1, their massive battle cruisers bristling with weapons. What are those humans doing? The Mesorite commander laughed when he saw the small Earth fleet. Do they think they can stop us with those toys? His laughter died when the human ship suddenly accelerated to speeds no Confederation vessel could match, executing maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. Human ships darted between the massive Mesorite cruisers, their weapons targeting precise weak points that no one outside the Mesorite Empire should have known about. Olivia Ward's combat strategies, developed over decades of careful study, proved devastatingly effective against the alien tactics. In just 6 hours, the Mesorite fleet was in ruins. The few surviving ships fled back to their territory, leaving the Aldorian homeworld untouched. How did you know their weaknesses? The Aldorian High Commander asked Admiral Ochoa after the battle. Frank gave a diplomatic answer about lucky guesses and quick thinking. He didn't mention the decades of intelligence gathering, the careful study of Mesorite ship designs, or the simulations run thousands of times in preparation for this exact scenario. In the council chamber the next day, Ambassador Daniel White addressed the stunned representatives. Earth stands with the Aldorian Confederation, he declared. We ask only for full membership in the council and seats on the defense and technology committees. It was a bold request, one that would have been laughed at just days before. But now, with the Mesorite threat exposed and human military prowess demonstrated, no one was laughing. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Confederation, along with the committee seats Daniel had requested. It was, in the eyes of the council, a small price to pay for such valuable allies. What they didn't realize was that those committee seats would give humans unprecedented access to Confederation secrets, defense plans, and technology. Later that night, Daniel White sent a coded message to Earth. Phase 2 complete, beginning Phase 3. In a secure room beneath the rebuilt United Nations building in New York, the leaders of Earth's unified government reviewed the report. The plan set in motion 50 years earlier was proceeding even better than expected. By the time they realize what's happening, said the Secretary General, we'll be too embedded to remove. No one mentioned the word empire. Humans had learned from history that empires built on conquest eventually fall, but an empire built on need, on mutual benefit, on making yourself indispensable, that was an empire that could last for millennia. And humanity was just getting started. By the 24th century, the human presence in galactic affairs had grown from a curiosity to a cornerstone. While many alien species still viewed themselves as the true powers of the galaxy, humans had quietly woven themselves into the fabric of interstellar civilization. Susan Ramsey stood at the window of her office in the Galactic Trade Commission headquarters. As the first human chairperson of this powerful body, she could see the entire capital city of the Confederation spread out below her. Ships from 100 worlds moved through the sky lanes, many of them human-designed or human-operated. 3. Jet delegation is here to see you, Chairperson, her assistant said from the doorway. Susan nodded. Send them in. The Zet were among the most ancient species in the galaxy, proud and often difficult to deal with. Yet here they were, coming to her for help with their latest trade dispute. 3 tall, thin aliens entered her office. Their skin had a bluish sheen, and their 4 eyes blinked in an unsynchronized pattern that many humans found unsettling. Susan had long since grown used to it. Chairperson Ramsey, the lead Zet said with a small bow, we appreciate you taking time to hear our concerns. Of course, Susan replied. The Commission exists to ensure fair trade for all species. What followed was a complex discussion about tariffs and shipping rights. The Zet believed they were being treated unfairly by the Mesorites. Susan listened carefully, asked precise questions, and offered solutions that seemed to favor neither side too strongly. What the Zet didn't realize was that Susan's proposed resolution would route more trade through human-controlled shipping hubs and require oversight from Commission inspectors, most of whom were human or trained by humans. It was a pattern repeated across the galaxy. Humans didn't demand control. They simply positioned themselves as fair mediators, reasonable partners, and efficient administrators. And slowly, system by system, they became indispensable. On the colony world of New Eden, Governor Peter Blackwood reviewed the latest reports from his planetary defense force. What had begun as a small outpost had grown into a thriving colony of 5 million people, and a crucial waypoint for ships traveling between the Eldorian core worlds and the outer systems. The Mesorite trade delegation will arrive tomorrow, his secretary reminded him. They're hoping to establish a permanent embassy here. Peter nodded. After their failed attack on the Eldorian homeworld decades ago, the Mesorites had gradually shifted their focus from military expansion to economic competition. Now they sought closer ties with human colonies, recognizing the growing importance of these worlds in galactic trade. Make sure they understand our terms, Peter said. They can have their embassy, but they'll abide by our laws and security protocols. That evening, Peter sent an encrypted update to Earth. New Eden was just one of dozens of strategically located human colonies that now controlled key points along major trade routes. Ships could travel from one end of the Confederation to the other, without ever leaving human-controlled space, a fact few non-humans had fully grasped. Director Nicole Murphy of the Human Diplomatic Corps watched as her newest graduates prepared to depart for assignments across the galaxy. These weren't just diplomats in the traditional sense. They were cultural ambassadors, language specialists, and keen observers trained to integrate into alien societies and gently influence them toward human values and interests. Remember, she told the group, your job isn't to change them overnight. It's to build relationships, understand their cultures, and find common ground. What she didn't say explicitly was that these young men and women would join thousands of others who formed humanity's invisible network of influence. They would befriend alien officials, teach in alien schools, advise alien businesses, and slowly reshape alien perceptions. The long game, as it was called in diplomatic circles, had been playing out for over 200 years now. Each generation of humans pushed a little further, reached a little deeper into the power structures of galactic civilization. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the representatives of the Aldorian Confederation and the Mezarite Empire glared at each other across the table. The dispute over the mineral-rich Kelto system had been brewing for years, and now it threatened to erupt into open warfare. The Kelto system has been under Aldorian protection for 3 centuries, the Aldorian ambassador declared. The Mezarite claims are baseless. Our historical records show clear Mezarite activity in the system long before Aldorian arrival. The Mezarite representative countered, "We demand recognition of our rights." The council leader, a member of the ancient Drell species, looked exhausted by the endless debate. Perhaps, he suggested, a neutral third party could help mediate this dispute. All eyes turned to Alan Cooper, the human representative who had built a reputation for fairness and creative problem-solving. Alan stood up. Humanity would be honored to help our friends reach a peaceful resolution. What followed were weeks of careful negotiations. Alan and his team shuttled between the two powers, listening to concerns, offering suggestions, and gradually building a framework for compromise. The final agreement was hailed as a masterpiece of diplomacy. The Kelto system would be jointly administered, with both Aldorians and Mezarites sharing its resources. To ensure fairness, a team of neutral administrators would oversee the arrangement. Those administrators, of course, would be human. "It's brilliant," Susan Ramsey said as she read the Keltos agreement in her office at the Trade Commission. "Without firing a shot, we now control access to one of the richest mineral deposits in the sector." Alan Cooper nodded. "And both sides think they got what they wanted. The Aldorians maintain their prestige, the Mezarites get their resource access, and we get to be the power behind the throne," Susan finished. This was how humanity had expanded its influence across the stars. Not through conquest or intimidation, but by making themselves useful, even necessary to the functioning of galactic civilization. Human businesses managed shipping networks. Human colonies controlled strategic locations. Human diplomats resolved conflicts. Human technology integrated seamlessly with alien systems, often becoming the preferred option due to its reliability and user-friendly design. And perhaps most importantly, humans bred and adapted faster than most alien species. While an Aldorian might live for 300 years, they reproduced slowly. Humans, with their shorter lifespans and quicker generational turnover, could evolve their strategies more rapidly, adapting to new situations while older species were still considering their options. In a quiet office on Earth, the current head of the Humanity Advancement Initiative reviewed the latest reports from across the galaxy. Phase 3 of the Grand Plan was proceeding even better than expected. Humans now held key positions in every major galactic institution, from the Trade Commission to the Science Directorate to the Defense Council. "By the time they realize what we've done," she murmured to herself, "it will be too late to change." Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had simply made themselves its managers, its mediators, its problem solvers. And with each passing year, their grip on the true levers of power grew stronger. The invasion continued, peaceful and invisible but unstoppable all the same. The first cases appeared on the outer rim worlds, a strange illness that affected multiple species but seemed to spare humans entirely. Victims experienced fever, weakness, and a blue-tinted rash that spread across their bodies. Within weeks, the disease had appeared on 50 worlds across 3 sectors of space. The Galactic Council called an emergency session as panic began to spread. Representatives from affected worlds described overwhelmed medical facilities and rising death tolls. "This plague crosses species barriers," the Aldorian health minister reported, her wings trembling with exhaustion. "Our scientists have never seen anything like it," the Mezarite delegate nodded grimly. Our worlds are experiencing the same crisis. Traditional treatments are ineffective. As the reports continued, the human representative, Richard Bell, listened quietly. When the room finally fell silent, all eyes turned to him. Earth has been monitoring the situation closely, Richard said. Our medical teams are ready to deploy immediately to affected worlds. We have developed treatments that show promise in early trials. The speed of the human response raised eyebrows among some council members. How had Earth prepared treatment so quickly for a disease that had only recently emerged? Before anyone could voice these concerns, the massive doors to the council chamber burst open. A delegation of Zet, their blue skin marked with ceremonial paint, strode into the room. This plague is no accident, the Zet leader declared. It is a human weapon designed to weaken the rest of us while they seize more power. Richard Bell stood calmly in the face of the accusation. These claims are baseless and dangerous. While you waste time with conspiracy theories, people are dying. Earth offers help freely to all affected worlds. The council chamber erupted into arguments. Some species sided with the Zet, noting how conveniently humans had been spared from the illness. Others pointed to humanity's long history of peaceful cooperation. In the end, desperation won out over suspicion. The council voted to accept human medical aid, with the provision that teams from other species would monitor their work. Dr. Maria Johnson stepped off her medical transport onto the surface of Aldor Prime, the homeworld of the Aldorian species. Behind her, dozens of human doctors, nurses, and researchers unloaded equipment and supplies. The main treatment center is this way, an Aldorian guide said, leading them toward a large dome-shaped building. Inside, the scene was grim. Hundreds of Aldorians lay on beds, their normally vibrant wings now dull and motionless. Medical staff moved among them, doing what little they could to ease suffering. Maria got to work immediately, organizing her team and setting up treatment stations. The Human Medical Corps had been preparing for this deployment for weeks, since the first reports of the disease had reached Earth. Begin with the critical cases, she instructed her staff. Administer the broad-spectrum antiviral first, then the immune boosters. An Aldorian doctor watched suspiciously. How do we know these treatments are safe? They haven't been tested on our physiology. Maria met his gaze steadily. They were developed based on extensive research into Aldorian biology. And I'll take the first dose myself to show it's not harmful to any species. This wasn't entirely accurate. The treatments had been tested extensively in secret human laboratories that had studied alien biology for decades. But Maria knew better than to mention this. Within days, patients began to show improvement. Word spread quickly to other worlds where human medical teams were achieving similar results. The death rates began to fall. On the distant world of Zet Prime, the leaders of the Zet Imperium gathered in their ancient council chamber. The humans claimed to be saviors, but they engineered this crisis, said Supreme Leader Kraz. Their medical teams are now on hundreds of worlds, accessing our most sensitive facilities and gathering intelligence. General Heather Lewis, commander of human security forces in the sector, received word of growing Zet hostility. Reports indicated that Zet warships were moving toward worlds where human medical teams operated. Deploy protective detachments to all treatment centers, she ordered. Defensive posture only. We cannot appear aggressive. When the first Zet ships appeared in orbit around treatment worlds, human security vessels were already in position. They formed protective screens around the planets, making it clear that any attack would meet resistance. The galaxy stood on the edge of war. On one side, the Zet Imperium claimed humans had created the plague as part of a power grab. On the other, most species now depended on human medical aid to save their populations. Commander Ben Harris led a small team through the abandoned Zet research facility on the moon of Draxus. Acting on intelligence from human networks, they had infiltrated the facility while Zet forces were focused elsewhere. According to our sources, the evidence should be in the central laboratory, Ben told his team as they moved silently through darkened corridors. When they reached the lab, they found what they were looking for: research logs, biological samples, and test results that told a disturbing story. A faction within the Zet military had engineered the plague themselves, intending to weaken rival species before launching a campaign of conquest. The plot had gone wrong when the disease spread faster and more widely than anticipated, affecting Zet populations as well. Rather than admit responsibility, Zet leaders had blamed humanity, hoping to turn the galaxy against the growing human influence. Ben secured the evidence and transmitted copies to human command centers across the galaxy. "Get this to Richard Bell at the Council immediately," he instructed his communications officer. "The truth needs to come out before the Zet push us into war." The Galactic Council fell into stunned silence as Richard Bell presented the evidence. Video logs from Jet laboratories, genetic sequences proving the plague's origin, and communications between Jet military leaders discussing their plan. The human medical response was so rapid because we detected unusual Jet research activity months ago and began preparing countermeasures as a precaution, Richard explained. "We didn't know exactly what they were developing, but we knew it was dangerous." The Zet delegation collapsed in disarray. Some tried to claim the evidence was fabricated. Others attempted to blame rogue elements within their own government. But the truth was undeniable. In the following days, the Zet Imperium's influence crumbled. Their trading partners imposed sanctions. Their military allies distanced themselves. Their leader was forced to resign in disgrace. And in the power vacuum that followed, humans stepped forward to help manage the transition to a new Zet government, to oversee the dismantling of their biological weapons programs, and to continue treating plague victims across the galaxy. "It worked better than we could have hoped," Maria Johnson told Richard Bell as they met in a secure room on the council station. "No one questions our presence on their worlds now. We're heroes." Richard nodded. "And with the Jet discredited, their territories will need new administration. The Council has already asked Earth to provide temporary oversight." Neither of them mentioned the uncomfortable truth, that human intelligence had known about the Jet plague research for much longer than they claimed publicly. They had allowed the plot to progress far enough to gather evidence, while preparing countermeasures to ensure minimal casualties. It was a calculated risk, but one that had paid off enormously. Humanity's position as the galaxy's protector and healer was now unquestioned. Their medical authority extended to hundreds of worlds. Their security forces had legal justification to operate throughout former Zet space, and no one suspected that the quiet invasion had just taken another major step forward. 3 centuries after first contact, humanity's presence extended across 500 inhabited worlds. What had begun with a single ship now encompassed a vast network of colonies, trade hubs, and administrative centers. Humans could be found in every corner of known space, living among aliens, working in their governments, teaching in their schools, and managing their economies. On Earth, in the rebuilt city of New Geneva, Grand Chancellor Ryan Phillips prepared for the most important speech of his career. Today he would address the entire Galactic Union from the home planet of humanity. "Are you ready, sir?" asked his aide, adjusting the Chancellor's formal jacket. Ryan nodded. He had been preparing for this moment his entire life. As the latest in a long line of leaders who had guided humanity's silent expansion, he would now reveal the final phase of a plan set in motion over 500 years ago. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Some were human, but many were not. Aldorians, Meserites, reformed Zet, and dozens of other species sat together in what appeared to be perfect harmony. Cameras would broadcast the speech to every corner of the galaxy. Ryan took his place at the podium and looked out at the assembled delegates. "Friends, allies, citizens of the galaxy," he began. "Today marks 500 years since humanity first ventured beyond our solar system. 5 centuries of friendship, cooperation, and shared progress." The crowd applauded politely. It was a significant milestone, though perhaps not as important to non-humans as it was to Earth. "In that time," Ryan continued, "we have faced challenges together, conflicts between ancient powers, natural disasters, the plague that nearly devastated so many worlds. Through it all, we have stood together and emerged stronger." Heads nodded in agreement. Few could argue with this assessment. "Today, I am proud to announce the next step in our shared journey," After careful consultation with governments across the galaxy, Earth proposes the formation of a new Galactic Administrative Service. This caught the attention of the audience. There had been whispers about such a proposal, but no official announcement, until now. This service will streamline governance across our worlds, reduce bureaucratic barriers to trade and travel, and ensure consistent application of union laws. It will draw qualified individuals from all species, though Earth is honored to provide the initial organizational framework and training. What Ryan didn't say explicitly was that this new service would consolidate power that humans already held. Across countless worlds, it would formalize the administrative control that had been built piece by piece over centuries. The challenges of our age require coordination on a galactic scale, Ryan said, his voice growing more passionate. Climate management for developing worlds, resource distribution to prevent shortages, protection against outside threats. These are responsibilities we must face together with a unified approach. The speech continued for another 30 minutes, laying out a vision of galactic governance that sounded inclusive and fair. Representatives from major powers rose to voice their support for the initiative. The vote that followed was nearly unanimous in favor. None of them recognized that they had just voted to officially hand control of the galaxy to humanity. On the distant world of Calax, far from the power centers of the Galactic Union, Eldorian Elder Thyrix completed the final page of his study. For 30 years he had been researching power structures across known space, tracking resource flows, analyzing political appointments, and mapping the true centers of influence. His findings disturbed him deeply. "You wish to see me, Elder?" Julia Martinez asked as she entered his study. As the human observer assigned to the Eldorian remnant government, she made it her business to stay informed about Thyrix's activities. "Yes, Secretary Martinez, I have completed my analysis of galactic power distribution." The elder Eldorian's wings trembled slightly as he spoke. "I believe you will find it interesting." Julia sat down across from him, her face showing polite interest. "I'm sure it's quite thorough." "It is." Thyrix pushed a data crystal across the table. "Would you like to know what I found?" "Please tell me," she said, though she already knew what he would say. Thyrix's 4 eyes fixed on her face. "Humans control everything." When Julia didn't respond, he continued, his voice growing more intense. "Not through conquest or coercion, but through what I can only describe as the most brilliant infiltration in galactic history. You hold decisive votes in every major institution. You control key trade routes. Your technology is integrated into every aspect of our lives. Your administrators manage our most critical systems." He stood up, wings flaring. "By the time we realized what was happening, humanity had already ruled the galaxy for 100 years. Julia remained calm. "And what do you plan to do with this analysis, Elder Thyrix?" "The truth must be shared. The galaxy must know." "Know what?" Julia interrupted gently. "That humans have worked tirelessly to maintain peace? That we've sacrificed to heal the sick, feed the hungry, and protect the weak? That we've created prosperity unprecedented in galactic history?" She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Eldorian city below. "Look at your world, Elder. Your people are healthier, wealthier, and safer than at any point in your history. Is this oppression? Is this something to fear?" Thyrix hesitated. "But you control us." "We guide," Julia corrected. "We assist, we coordinate, and yes, we lead. But we do so with the consent and cooperation of all species." She turned back to face him. "Your analysis is correct, Elder Thyrix. Humanity has become the dominant force in the galaxy, but we've done it without firing a shot in conquest, without enslaving a single world, without destroying a single culture." After a long moment, Thyrix asked, "What happens now?" "Now?" Julia smiled. "Now I transmit your findings to Earth, along with my report that you've discovered the truth. And life continues as it has been. Your revelations change nothing because, in truth, most people would prefer not to look too closely at who holds power as long as their lives are good." Later that day, Julia sent a simple encrypted message to Earth. Assessment complete. They finally understand. In his office in New Geneva, after the historic speech and the celebrations that followed, Grand Chancellor Ryan Phillips read the message and permitted himself a small smile. He opened a secure cabinet and removed an ancient document, preserved for centuries and passed from one leader to another. It was the original plan, drafted before humans had even left Earth's atmosphere. A 5-phase strategy to secure humanity's place among the stars, not through war, but through integration. Phase 1. First contact and observation. Phase 2. Limited. Integration and demonstration of value. Phase 3. Position humans in key roles across galactic society. Phase 4. Become indispensable through crisis management. Phase 5. Formalize control with universal consent. At the bottom of the document was a simple note from humanity's leaders to their distant descendants. Never conquer, never oppress. Lead with wisdom and compassion. Make Earth proud. Ryan returned the document to its place and gazed out at the stars visible through his window. The final phase was now beginning. Humanity would no longer hide its leadership role. They would embrace it openly, guiding the galaxy toward a future brighter than any single species could create alone. The invasion was complete. The stars belonged to humanity not because they had taken them by force, but because the galaxy had willingly placed itself in their hands.